During World War I, victory gardens were promoted as a way to establish food security. This community gardening effort was very successful and produced nearly a third of the vegetables consumed nationwide. Currently, food access is still an issue in the United States. For example, in Flint, Michigan, access to healthy foods varies greatly by location. For locations that have poor access to healthy foods, home and community gardens may provide a solution. To understand the feasibility of this solution, we decided to explore this research question. What are common barriers and drivers to home and community gardening, and how do they differ by socioeconomic status? The American Psychological Association defines socioeconomic status as a social standing or class of an individual or group. It is often measured as a combination of education, income, and occupation. To investigate this issue, we interviewed key informants with background knowledge of home and community gardens and food access in Flint, Ann Arbor, and Ypsilanti, Michigan. We also looked at relevant literature and demographic data.
Lack of knowledge is actually having access to the resources that you need to grow your own food, and those can be pretty inexpensive, but again, if you don't know where to access those things, that can be a challenge. I would say it's fairly good in Ann Arbor. I mean, it sort of depends on your living arrangement. There are a number of community garden outlets for people who don't have access to sort of private space in a yard, for instance.
Knowledge, I would say, is number one. And then I also think kind of like the startup costs in terms of time and money. I think that it's kind of an investment to get started.
I mean, there's lots of free resources, but you have to have time to access those resources. Like you can go get free compost from the township of Ypsi, but you have to have a truck, you have to have the time to go and shovel it in your truck and then take it out of your truck.
Ann Arbor is a bubble into itself, so it's hard to really compare it.
I think people probably see it as either like hippies or people with too much time on their hands.
I think more like 5 or 10 years ago, some of the stereotypes were like home gardeners, where it was kind of like hippie type. But I think it's fairly normal now. I mean,
Everybody thinks that everybody grows their own food is a hippie, and of course that's the stereotype, and that's not the reality. The reality of people that at least enjoy. Everybody enjoys seasonal food.
I think in different time periods throughout history, stereotypes probably include, needing to grow your own food for socioeconomic reasons, pride in growing food on behalf of the country. I mean, wartime gardens were a huge movement, so sort of some positive stereotypes came out of that. So I think, it fluctuates sort of depending on what the climate of food is at a given time. But currently, I think it's pretty good. Probably. Again, it comes back to dynamics within a home. So, it takes time to grow a garden. Not a lot of time, but it does take time. So, it depends on your availability. It depends on, how many people in your household are working. It depends on how many people you're trying to feed, etc. So, I would imagine that at some level income does impact people's willingness to perhaps start a garden, especially when you start lining up those barriers of getting access to tools and resources and knowledge, in addition to finding time, in addition to those other things. I think some of that though is offset by the fact that you are providing food for yourself. But I definitely think it can make it harder to sort of start that process.
I think having that mind block of you need all these tools and you need all this stuff to get a garden started. But in reality, there's resources where someone will come and till for you or do things like that, and it's pretty minimal. So I think at first, it can be a block. If someone's working a minimum wage job and has a family, they're not going to have the time if another family has their a one parent staying at home all the time. Or
growing your own food at home can be done no matter what. It's obviously, if you don't have as much money, it's hard, but there are a lot of people, there's a lot of programs. Growing Hope in Ipsy is one of the ones that I'm super familiar with. They teach people how to grow your own food and how to do it on a budget. And I think, the socioeconomic question is also just huge. Why there's no food in Detroit is not because there can't be. It's a huge question. There's many reasons that things like that happen. But as far as availability to local food, you have a harder time getting anything.
But there's definitely cheap ways to do it. We have programs that basically I think you could probably spend $5 and grow a garden for the year.
I think that probably varies depending on the community that you're in, very much so. We have a number of phenomenal nonprofits. I think we're fortunate in this area in particular to not have some of those things. I think that certainly can be a challenge in other areas and probably in bigger cities as well.
I think a super low income person couldn't think they would have enough money to do it. Because it takes an investment that you don't get anything back on for a while. Whereas you can take that same money and go to a store and get food immediately. So I think anytime you don't have extra money, it's hard to invest it in anything, and that you're not going to get an immediate return for.
I think there's benefits because it connects you with a lot of people. You know, if you're sharing your food with people or if you're doing the garden with other people, that's great.
I mean, a lot of like the motivator for people starting community gardens that come to our garden leadership training is because they don't have access to food in their community, like healthy and fresh food, or they want to do something to improve their community. It's a great way to bring people together, and it's a great community builder too.
Good food tastes good, and so it's a positive cycle where if you're growing your own food and you're eating your own food and it tastes great, then it's a really fantastic way to be able to sort of expand your healthy eating across the board.
It's a lot more meaningful, like if you grew a zucchini, because you're going to want to use all of it, like rather than if you just bought one at the store and let it sit in your fridge. I think it's like really impactful when someone's like growing it themselves, harvesting it and eating it and seeing it from like that seed to their plate. I think that's like the most impactful.
There are several risks and barriers that disproportionately deter people of low socioeconomic status from home and community gardening, such as land access, time, and initial financial investment. However, home and community gardening also offers the potential to alleviate issues of food access and increase community resilience in populations of low socioeconomic status. Gardens can also have benefits on healthy behaviors and positive lifestyle changes. Thankfully, organizations like Project Grow, Growing Hope, and Edible Flint are being established to help people overcome barriers and experience the many benefits of home and community gardens.
My favorite Michigan grown fruits and vegetables. I really like asparagus and garlic. Actually, I have asparagus and garlic tattoos.
I can't pick a favorite. I mean, I really can't. It depends on the day. I can't pick a favorite, anything like that.
Yeah, I really like apples. They're great.
My favorite Michigan grown vegetable are beets.
Honestly, I really like beets.
Beets are a highly undervalued vegetable, and that's actually one of the foods that I, when I was volunteering on a farm, helped to dig up, and it was sort of my pay to take home at the end of the day. So I have a fond memory for beets.
Those are good for your liver. That's good for me. I was going to get a beet tattoo, but a friend of mine has one, and I don't want to be a copycat.